What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Song Breakdowns on Simple Songwriting. We are looking at another Linkin Park song from their new album, From Zero. This album is really kind of turned into like a little bit of a project for me because I'm really enjoying it. There's just so many cool songs on here, especially these deep cuts. So the more I listen to some of these songs later in the album, I really am getting a lot of appreciation for them. I actually think I was impressed by the singles that they put out, and I still think Heavy as the Crown is like, the crowning jewel on this album. But I hear songs like Stained, and the more I listen to them, I just they're just fantastic. They're so well written. And this song, Stained, is what we're covering today. Uh, and it just sounds great. And there's so many good things to talk about here from a songwriting perspective. So yeah, let's just dive right in. There's a lot of stuff to talk about here. So let's just hear this beginning section. So let's just start right there. That is so there's a lot of cool things happening with that. So first off, that's actually setting up the rhythm for the song. That rhythm there carries out throughout the entire song. I'll point it out in different sections, but it's the baseline rhythm that they have for the whole song. Um, on top of that, it's actually setting up the chord progression for the whole song. It's it's a little tease on it because they extrapolate on that chord progression throughout, but or they extrapolate on it during the chorus specifically, where they complete the progression. And we'll talk more about that once we get into the chorus. But specifically, it's setting up what will become the chord progression later on. So yeah, it's a pretty cool little part. And on top of that, like just the sound of it sounds extremely ominous. It's very foreboding, very intense. Like this doesn't have, we were talking about Two-Faced yesterday. This doesn't have that like fun vibe to it. This is a serious song, and they take it seriously, which I love. So yeah, let's just keep listening and see where they go with this. So we got that ominous synth building up. And then we've got Emily come in with the melodies. So this is again something that's really cool about we've talked about it a million times, but she's setting the melody up there, the da na na na, which is funny because I don't actually think that she sings that specific melody like in the actual song. I think that little melody, the da 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 da, is a background melody throughout the song. The main little melodic motif for this song is the da na 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 na, which she's about to do here in the intro as well. But it's just cool because she's got these different melodies that aren't even like, or there's the one melody which is the main melody, but then there's this background melody that you don't even hear in a specific part, but she sets it up you know early on. So cool stuff. And then yeah, here she does the main melodic motif that she does in the chorus. Stand. Right there, right in the back, and stand, which is a cool little melody. I'll talk about the theory of that here in a bit when we actually get to it. But yeah, so we've got it set up. On top of that, we've got some synths that are really building the in the background. So there's a lot of tension being built here. Like, and this is actually something that they're going to continue with in this song. Like the tension is like you can cut it with a knife, and they just keep building on it. Um, that's something that I personally really like. Like actually, saying, okay, yeah, we're gonna set up some tension here in the intro, and then instead of just releasing the tension when you get into the verse or the pre-chorus, uh, let's keep building it, and let's just keep, you know, really hammering home the intensity of this song. So yeah, a lot of tension being built already here, and it's going to continue into the verse. Let me see if there's anything else. Yeah, so in general, that's about it for this short little intro. Just setting up the chords, setting up the rhythm, setting up the melodies. It's a quick intro, Well, I say that, but it's actually 20 seconds long, which in general songwriting stuff that's actually a pretty long intro, you know? But to be fair, unlike a lot of other Linkin Park songs, this doesn't like bust into a heavy part or something. Like a heavy intro or something that which then comes down into a verse. It just has this tension building synth intro, which then goes into uh, it goes straight into the verse, and then the verse actually continues to build the tension. So yeah, um, so yeah, I mean, as far as like just an intro, like a synth intro on its own, still kind of long, but not necessarily long in terms of like the time it takes for the vocals to come in, right? Uh, so yeah, let's just take it back a little bit and let's listen to this full tension building, the full build up into the verse. There she is again singing it.
Yeah. And I'm
That I want to point that little na 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 that high pitched sound there. It's really cool. It's Linkin Park is really good about creating these distorted synth sounds. You know, it's always funny to me like when I hear like EDM, right? And EDM will have just the wildest synth noises you've ever heard, just absolutely intense and crazy. But it's very rarely to me actually distorted. It's almost just overpowered, you know, overpowering. But to actually distort the sound and actually make it a little ugly, that's something that I wish there was a bit more of. And it's something that Linkin Park has always been good at and good at doing it tastefully too. So just listen to that little distorted build up there, and then we're going to get into the verse right there.
yeah. And I'm my mouth, I shouldn't have said it.
Okay, so let's just talk about that line right there. Hand on my mouth, I shouldn't have said it. Actually, let's let the next line play too.
Gave you one chance, already regret it.
Okay, so I really like these lyrics. I'm going to talk a lot about the lyrics on this song because I think they nailed it. I talk a lot about like basic lyrics and like lame lyrics and what they're like. I think this is a good example of actual like good lyrics. So, hand on my mouth, I shouldn't have said it. This line alone, there's so many implications here, right? So, the first implication is he's covering his mouth because he said something that he shouldn't have said. But I'm going to be honest, and like I'm going to go there. This song kind of has a lot of implications about maybe abuse or something of the kind, something along those lines. And so I actually think you could interpret this as like somebody else putting their hand over your mouth too, and that's dark. That can be a bit dark, but honestly, like there's nothing like I think there's nothing wrong with covering some dark topics in songs and taking things a little bit more seriously. In fact, I think music is a great place to discuss darker topics and darker themes. I'm not saying that that's exactly what this means or that it needs to go there, but I think they leave it open on purpose. Uh, and I like that. You know, it's not necessarily vulgar or anything, but I just think that's a really great first line for a song like this. And it's again, we're talking about tension building here. Like when you're listening to this song for the first time, you're thinking like, what is this about? Like, where are we going with it? And that line really grabs your attention. It's like, you know, just the idea of a hand over a mouth, like instinctively, even if it's you covering your own mouth, it it's not necessarily a positive image. At best, it's at least like, oh, you're having to censor yourself. At worst, it's somebody covering your mouth, preventing you from you know using your voice in whatever way. So yeah, a very dark, attention grabbing line. But then the second line is gave you a chance, already regret it. And again, continuing with this theme of like, who is this? Like this idea of like there is something bad happening here, like and already we're setting up that there is like a quote unquote villain of the story, right? And so there's like, okay, I gave you a chance and I'm already regretting it. And that, that sucks. Like that's immediately, it's like try to see the best in you, and it's already turned against me, right? um so just in terms of lyrics, like again, you can interpret these a lot of different ways. It doesn't have to be like the darkest interpretation of it. It could be as simple as like somebody, gaslighting you, or somebody manipulating you, which again is a very big topic in Linkin Park songs. But I do think that regardless of how you interpret it, these are really clever lyrics, and very well put in terms of capturing the emotions of this song, and setting up what this song will be about quickly, while leaving it open to interpretation, depending on who is listening to it. So let's take it back just a little bit. I'm going to talk more about the lyrics as we go on, because there's a really interesting conflict in this song that I personally like, and we'll get more into it. But let's discuss the music just a little bit.
Yeah. And I'm my mouth, I shouldn't have said it.
All right. So again, like I said, we were the synth set up that boom, 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 boom. But we now have the guitars kind of coming in. It's a very like, I would actually say it's kind of a subtle guitar sound. It almost sounds like it's a synth the way that it's blended in, but it definitely sounds like a guitar to me. Let me hear it one more time just to confirm.
Mouth, I shouldn't have said it.
Yeah, it just has that driven sound that a guitar has, but it's so well mixed in with the synth that I think it can be easily well, I don't want to say misinterpreted as a synth or not being a guitar. I just think that overall the mix that they went for just gives it this very imposing sound, and the guitar added in there bolsters it just enough. It's not distracting at all. It's just a beefiness added on to it, to facilitate the verse, right? Uh, Second off, the drums again are very sparse, but they're following along. So the drum beat is going do do ba do 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 ba. Let's listen to that.
Yeah. And I'm my mouth, I shouldn't have said it.
Doom doom ba doom doom ba. So again, we're still keeping the main rhythm, that dum 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 dum, but they're just adding, the drums are adding just that extra little kick in the second part, the dun 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 dun, right? And that's just really cool. We're gonna continue to build. Uh, and this is something that I'm noticing a lot about these songs from Linkin Park, and that I'm really appreciating the hell out of, is that they set the building blocks up, they set the foundation early on, and then they just build and build and build on it, and they're going to do that in this song as well. So yeah, on top of that, the drums actually stop after after Mike finishes singing, so there's a lot of open room here, which is filled up with ambient sounds and synths and stuff. But again, like that theme of building the tension, I think it really, I just think it's, so many bands are quick to like, oh, we don't want to make our listener uncomfortable, we've got to give them something to grab onto early. It's like Linkin Park said, no, this is a serious song about a serious topic, and we're going to let the listener sit and think about what I just said. And I think that's great. Like again, going back to that lyric, hand on my mouth, I shouldn't have said it. Like you are supposed to sit and think about that for a second, right? So listen to the way that he just pronounces, like makes that, declaration, and then you have to sit with that, with no drums, no guitars, no vocals, just the openness of the synth, which there's an open synth, like an ambient synth, and then there's the like wicka wicka synth going, that really builds that tension.
Yeah. And I'm my mouth, I shouldn't have said it.
Just open.
Gave you what.
And that sensu waka waka, like that's super cool. It really is like you just have to sit with that for a second. So yeah, let's keep listening.
Gave you one chance, already regret it. Try.
And I love how the second time around they actually leave it more open, and then the synth comes in right at the last second before continuing before the third line starts, right? So again, like you can cut that tension with a knife. It's really cool. You also get a little bit of Emily start to fade in. Uh, Throughout these verses, she is doing like background vote, like the background harmonies. This is where she comes back in with that. Um, yeah, take a listen to that real quick.
Trying so hard to be.
Oh, I think she just sings the one note there. But still, cool stuff. So then we get. I think that's everything here. Let me listen one more time just to make sure. Yeah, you just got that na 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 na, which again, I think I talked about this in actually the Truth Breakdown by Katy Perry, but that type of like synth or background sound is very cool. I call it like the Dark Knight sound, the na 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 na. It's very tension, like it's very intense, and even when you play it at like a lower volume and more subtly with like a softer synth, it still builds the tension there. So let's just listen to that little, like again, I call it like the Dark Knight, that back and forth between two notes, like na 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 na. So yeah, let's get into the next two lines because again, we're still building the tension here. But we start to expand on it just a little bit.
So hard to be sympathetic.
So yeah, Mike actually doesn't typically he doesn't typically sing long notes like that. I mean, a little bit. I'm not saying I shouldn't say that. He does, but it's always fun to hear him. Like I think most people associate him with the rapping side of Linkin Park, but I always enjoy hearing him sing. He's a great singer. He's a great musician all around. I mean, he's a solid guitarist, amazing rapper, great producer, just a great musician. And so it's really nice hearing him belt a few notes out. So yeah, that line. Let me play through the rest of the verse.
Trying so hard to be sympathetic, but I know where it's gonna go if I let it, and I let it, knowing you're.
So yeah, trying so hard to be sympathetic, but I know where it's gonna go if I let it. So again, this idea that like I'm trying to be sympathetic with this, I'll just say like the antagonist of this song, right? Because there's a very clear antagonist. Um, you're trying to be understanding and sympathetic for this antagonist, but it's really hard because you know that sympathy can get taken advantage of, and that's what that fourth line means. But I know where it's gonna go if I let it. Like if you let this person take advantage of you, they're gonna take advantage of you. It's an unfortunate reality of some people. So yeah. And even the way that he says sympathetic, like trying so hard to be sympathetic, it's like, I talk a lot about like purposeful songwriting and like doing the things that you do with a purpose. I think the fact that he holds that specific note out, which is like, how do I phrase this? If you look at the structure of this verse, right? The first two lines set up the conflict. Like, hand on my mouth, I shouldn't have said it. Gave you a chance, already regret it. It's like that's like the condemnation of the antagonist. But then the third line is where you say, well, maybe I'm trying. I know I've made a mistake here already. I shouldn't have said it. I already regret it. I'm trying to be sympathetic to you though, but I know where it's going to go if I let it. So that like the idea that you're kind of you're trying to second guess yourself, like you're going back and forth. The fact that he holds that note out, I think really emphasizes it being like it's like that complex emotion of like I'm trying, but it's really not working, and I know that. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like trying so hard to like you're almost trying to talk yourself into being sympathetic, and that can be very frustrating. And the fact that that's the note that he holds out, I think, really hammers that home. That it's like I'm trying so hard to be sympathetic, but then he comes back down. But I know where it's gonna go if I let it. So yeah, really, really powerful stuff. Like it's really great the way that he did that. I think it just speaks to like I think it speaks to how your mind will actually go through things and think about things like that. I want to believe, I want to, be sympathetic to them, but it's just not. I don't. I know that if I let this go too far, it's well, I know where it's going to go if I let it go too far. So, but let's talk about the music underneath that long note when he says sympathetic real quick because he really the music really amps up here.
So hard to be sympathetic.
Like we've got heavy reverb on that sympathetic, and then like we actually get some it almost sounds like percussion, like very filtered percussion. Let's listen again.
Trying so hard to be sympathetic.
I don't think it's actually percussion. I think it's just the synths. They're letting more of the lower frequencies in the synths out. So you're getting more. What that means is you're getting more bass frequencies. So it's actually hitting like lower, like boom, 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 boom. Which is similar to like taking a drum beat and taking away the lower frequencies, right? Because your drums are usually very heavy and low end, like boom, boom, boom. But if you take away the low end in the drums, you get that doom, 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 doom. So it's not. But I don't think that's what's happening here. I think it's just the synth. But we're getting heavier and heavier synth, and it's building in intensity. And then we get let's listen to the fourth line. So we get Emily coming in with the oh. And then it sounds like it might not be guitars, but we do get some long notes that sound a little more distorted in the background. The yeah. So then we get the pre-chorus. I think that's everything there. So we get into the pre-chorus, and the pre-chorus we start to pick up vocally. And then on musically, we're just going to continue building that tension. So let's just listen through this pre-chorus. It's pretty short. Let me back it up just a tad. Knowing you're hiding when no one else sees. Close lips, smile, cause there's blood in your teeth. What you forget, you were gonna repeat. All those sounds. Make amends like your hand's still clean. So yeah, all of the ambient noise is really starting to pick up here. It's becoming almost overwhelming, which is great. Like it's very purposeful. You have Emily singing the oh in the background there again. And then Mike is obviously still he's picking up the pace of his rapping. He's no longer just saying the line and then pausing. In terms of the drums and the guitars, we're still keeping that same, bass line do 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 boom boom boom. Knowing you're hiding when no one else sees. Close lips, smile, cause there's blood in your teeth. Yeah, no real change there. The synth is all building. So let's talk about Mike for a second. Knowing you're hiding what no one else sees. Closed lips, smile, cause there's blood on your teeth. Oh, sorry. What you forget, you're gonna repeat. You don't. Oh, how does that melody go? Hiding when no one else sees. Closed lips, smile, cause there's blood on your teeth. What you forget, you were gonna repeat. You don't get to make amends like your hand's still clean. Yeah, so let's talk about these lyrics. Knowing you're hiding what no one else sees. Closed-lipped smile cause there's blood on your teeth. For what you forget, you are gonna repeat. You don't get to make amends like your hand's still clean. So we're really set. I'm going to talk about the full scope of this conflict when we get into the chorus, but we're really hammering home. This is where we go from like setting up the conflict and like what's happening into the actual accusations and what the theme is really about, which is it's really about guilt and regret. That's a big theme here. Even if the antagonist doesn't realize that they're going to regret what they did, the thing that they did, whatever it is, it's still there. It's still an action that they performed. So this knowing you're hiding what no one else sees, the implication is deep down, you know what you've done. Closed lipped smile because there's blood on your teeth. It's a reinforcement of the first line, but I think it's building on that intensity. Like it's, you know, knowing you're hiding what no one else sees is kind of a tamer version, but closed lipped smile because there's blood on your teeth, that's a bit more vicious. I think that's actually my favorite line on the whole song. It's just a very unique line. I've never heard that line before. I've never heard something like that phrased, and the implications of it are very there's a lot of implications. Like first off, closed lipped smile. Like first off, you're smiling, so you're being fake. You're purposefully closing your lips in order to hide, you know, what you've done from people. And then because there's blood on your teeth, I think that that's such an interesting way to portray this conflict here, because the accusation is that the antagonist has done something to our protagonist, which is, the person singing the song, or the voice of the lyrics, right? And I'm not talking about like Mike and Emily. I'm talking about like the hypothetical character in the song who is speaking, right? um but the idea of blood on your teeth, I think, is really interesting, because that's typically what you get. That can mean so many different things. It can, I think the first way that I took it is actually like, that's what happens when you get your face knocked in, right? Like your mouth bleeds, and it could mean like it's just an interesting way to portray it. Like you actually have been damaged, like the antagonist has been damaged, but they're trying to hide that, which is actually kind of the implication of the song. We'll talk about more in the chorus, but it's the antagonist who has actually done the misdeed, the wrong thing, who is damaged. So I just think that's a really interesting implication with that lyric. Closed lips smile because there's blood on your teeth. The next line is, what you forget you are gonna repeat. um so there's also this layer to this song, lyrically and thematically, that the antagonist doesn't even remember what they did, or they're trying to forget what they did. They're trying to forget what they did. Well, I feel like the song flip flops back and forth a little bit between like whether or not the antagonist actually remembers what they did or not. I think the implication is that they want to forget, or they're trying to pretend that they didn't do it, but deep down they know. So yeah, this line here is pretty cool. Like, what you forget you are gonna repeat. Like you don't understand. Like if you try to forget what you've done, you're just going to do it again. So you trying to avoid this and talk your way out of it, or pretend like it didn't happen, it's not going to it's not going to do you any favors. You're just going to do it again. Like it's inauthentic. You're not actually trying to make things better, which is then reinforced by the last line of this pre-chorus, which is, you don't get to make amends like your hands still clean. It's like you haven't actually fessed up to what you've done. So don't come at me and try to make amends and act like everything's all good. Like, oh, we're just gonna let bygones be bygones. Like you're still guilty, you know. So there's just so many. It's such a it is very open ended. There's a lot of ways you can interpret this, but it's also so awesome the way that they portray this conflict and all of the different layers of it. Like you've done something bad, but you're actually the one who's damaged. You know that you're hiding it, but you're trying to pretend like you forgot it, or that you don't know. And also, that if you actually were to forget it, you're just going to repeat it. So the fact that you're trying to act like you don't remember, or that it didn't happen, it's actually going to manifest itself as the problem even further. And then on top of that, you're going to come at me and try to make amends as if it didn't happen. And it's like, that's not how this works. You don't get to do something bad and then just pretend, oh, whatever, it didn't happen. So yeah, like all of that I just said, just packed into 4 lines. Like when I talk about, useless fucking lyrics in pop songs, This is the opposite of that. Like this is packing in a whole lot of complicated conflicts and like emotional turmoil into a short time span. And then to have the music kind of backing it up and really reinforcing the severity of what they're saying, it really is phenomenal. Um, I think the last thing I want to add here, uh, musically, before we get into the chorus, because I really want to get into the chorus so we can fully talk about this. Um, there's nothing musically insane happening right now. Mike's melody is not that crazy. You know, knowing you're hiding when no one else sees, closed lips smile because there's blood on your teeth. That's not a crazy melody. You know, da da na na da da dun 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 da da dun da 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 dun 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 like that. Nothing crazy. The rhythms in the background, that boom 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 boom. That's not that complicated. Very simple. This is just a good example of like, you don't need to overcomplicate the shit that you write. I mean, and I should probably take that advice myself, but sometimes doing something simple can be wonderfully effective and really drive the point home. So yeah, I think that's everything for the first verse and pre-chorus. We'll talk more about this stuff. Like, I think one of the best things about this song is looking at it comprehensively. So I do want to get through it a little bit faster than normal because I want to discuss the full thing, like the full picture of this song. So let's get into the chorus.
Still clean.
Because you're stained. You try to hide the marks, but it won't fade. You lie and lie like I was nothing.
Okay, so let's state the obvious thing here. Emily Armstrong sounds absolutely fantastic on this chorus. I'm even going to go out on a limb and say this might be the best she sounds on the whole album. She absolutely nails this part. It really, like, it gives me goosebumps right now just listening to it and talking about it. Like, this is such a powerful performance. I really am blown away by it. I wish that I want like other people, like other singers, to take note of this because this is how you nail delivery and emotion and intensity right here. Listen to how she transitions seamlessly from like softer, cleaner vocals because you're staying and like softer, clean vocals into the heavier, more distorted vocals without going completely overboard and sounding ridiculous.
Clean.
Because you're stained.
You hear that? She actually does it in the middle of the word stained because you're stained. Like just a little bit in that like A syllable. Stained. Like that is so awesome and so precise. Listen one more time for that little moment of distortion just on that one word because she's actually singing clean for the rest of it.
Because you're stained.
You know, stained. That is so awesome. Great performance, great delivery, and then she keeps going with it. Like, let's listen to the next line.
Try to hide the marks, but it won't fade.
Again, fade. Seamless transition from distorted to clean vocals, or clean to distorted, and then back to clean. And it just works so well. It's not overdone. It's not, it doesn't sound pretentious like the theater kids, who overdo everything when they sing stuff. It just sounds great. Let's listen to this next part here.
You lie and lie like I was nothing. Pretend you're spotless, but I don't wash away.
All of that, by the way, is clean. I think maybe on Don't Wash, she does a tiny bit of distortion there, but that's all pretty much clean singing. Listen one more time.
Pretend you're spotless, but
Pretend you're spotless.
I don't wash away.
Don't, yeah, on the word don't, she has a tiny little bit of distortion there, but it's very subtle and the rest of it is very smooth.
You're spotless, but I don't wash away. And now you're
Yeah, really great performance there. But then I think the like Like all of that was fantastic, and then she ends it with this great like melodic motif here. Let's listen.
Now you're staying.
So that is so cool. That is such a interesting little melody. Like I don't know if I've ever heard a melody quite like that. And so I actually figured out the notes. I'm not gonna like get into the specifics of it. Um, well, you know what? I am. Here's what's going on. Y'all, non-music people might not understand this, but for the music nerds, what she's doing there is she's doing, she's switching between two chords. She goes, stand, like she does that thing twice, but just goes down in the chords. So she goes da 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 da. And what she's doing is she hits the one and then the six and then the five. So and then she goes down to the next chord, 1 6 5. Da na na. So that 6 5 is what's so interesting because I don't think a lot of singers usually hit the six over a chord. It's a very unique note to hit, especially in a melody like this. So yeah, da na na, and then down to the next chord, da na na, stand. Yeah, very interesting thing there. I think the first note is a D sharp. It goes like D sharp to B to A sharp, and then it goes down to C sharp to A sharp to G sharp. That's right. So she ends on the G sharp, which is the fifth of C sharp. Sorry, getting my notes mixed up. I don't have my. It's so much easier for me to understand theory when I've got my guitar with me. So I'm just calling the notes out on the spot is a little tricky. But yeah, that's what's going on for the theory nerds. She's hitting the 1 6 5 1 6 5. For the people who are not music theory nerds and who don't understand anything I just said, just know that she's hitting some pretty interesting notes. The six is a very unique note to hit, and that's why that little musical motif sounds so unique. Cool. Her delivery on that is flawless as far as I'm concerned. Let's listen to that one more time.
Wash away and now you're staying. Now you're staying.
Yeah, she is just floating. I think the last little bit I want to point out is that this melody is actually teased and the first time she says now you're because you're stained at the beginning. Listen to this.
Because you're staying.
So yeah, right there, like that's the tease. That's her teasing the what the melody is going to be. So you get used to it in your head. So that way, when she does the full melody here,
Pretend you're spot. Now you're staying.
it completes. And actually, let me listen real quick to the little synth chords underneath. They might be changing the chord underneath it. Yeah, so listen to that soft, like almost like a little sounds like a soft xylophone, filtered xylophone. It's not a xylophone. It just a soft synth underneath it going boom, boom, boom. Because you can hear when she switches from the first three notes to the second three notes in that chord progression. Da na na da na na. Listen. Bum, bum. Yeah, that bum, 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 and she goes da na 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 na. So yeah, fun stuff. Yeah, I should. It's more than just fun stuff. It's a fantastic performance. She really nails it, and it's funny because I think she actually does better on the second chorus of this song. I think this first chorus is wonderful. She nails it, but the second chorus of this song is one of the best choruses on the whole album. So we will continue to talk about and sing praises to her singing. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna have some water. I'm starting to sound like Emily with my effed up voice. Not that she has an effed up voice. Like that didn't come out right. All right, cool. So let's talk about this music here. So we've had all of this tension, like we've really been building the tension here, and it just this is a very interesting way of resolving the tension because it actually goes soft. Kind of similar to what they did in the Emptiness Machine, where the first verse chorus combination has Mike Shinoda, singing with the filtered drums, and then he sings over the piano chords. We do a similar thing here, but the music is even more soft and more ambient. So we're building the tension, and instead of like releasing the tension in a way that is intense and feels like an explosion, we actually do the opposite, and the tension releases in a very soft, somber way, which I think again nails the or drives home the seriousness of what she's saying so that we can really understand all of the words. And so yeah, let's check this out. Listen to that, the change from the intensity and all the tension and the synths and stuff we were talking about before, and how it transitions into the chorus.
Make amends like your hand's still clean.
Because you're stained. You try to hide the marks, but it won't fit.
Those synths are just fantastic sounding. The don't no.
Stained. You try to hide the marks, but it won't fade. You lie and lie like I was nothing.
Yeah, that really is just so smooth. And they actually continue to just stay that somber. I don't think that there's really any layers. Maybe some slight layering here, but I don't think there's anything. Let's listen real quick to see if there's any additional layers, but I don't think there are.
Pretend you're spotless, but I don't wash away, and now you're stained. And now
A
you're
little bit of background, like echo delay, like whoa, 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 right on that spot right there. Listen closely.
stained. And now you're stained.
Which ends on that whoa. You can hear it like whoa, 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 whoa. Take one more listen to that.
And now you're stained.
Yeah, so that little whoa, whoa, whoa builds the tension just a little bit. And it does sound like the synths, there might have been like some higher notes there when she does the pretend you're spotless, but I don't wash away line. But nothing too crazy. Listen one more time.
You lie and lie like I was nothing.
Right here.
Pretend you're spotless, but I don't wash away, and now you're
I'm hearing in the background like na na in the left speaker. Listen again.
spotless, but I don't wash away, and now you're stained.
And then it all cuts out.
You're stained.
The tension building. And so you actually get Mike Shinoda's vocals echoing in there. I'm just going to finish this part out. We're not going to go to the second verse just yet, but you can hear Mike's vocals echoing before he actually says the word. Yeah. So cool. Very, very cool stuff. So we start off very soft. We build the chords up just a little bit, and then we take them all away during those final two and now you're stained lines. So that way her vocal performance can really just stand on its own with just that like soft synth that I kind of said sound like a xylophone underneath the boom, boom, boom. Cool. Let's talk about the chord progression here. So earlier I said that the boom, 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 boom. I think that's how it went, right? Yeah, it's a little off. Boom, 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 boom. I talked about how that sets the chord progression up. You hear the full progression take shape here.
Because you're
Boom, 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 boom.
You try to hide the marks, but it won't
Boom, 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 boom.
You lie and lie like
So yeah, but the difference is that we have a third note come in. So the boom, 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 boom. Dun, I think that's the note. Na, 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 something like that. Take a listen to the third note.
Because you're stained. You try to hide the marks, but it won't
Boom, 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 boom,
fade. You
boom,
lie and
dun.
lie like I was.
Yeah. So again, that chord progression that is set up in the very beginning of the song, it's still the progression that's happening, but we're building on it with additional chords, so that way it has more emotional impact, and Emily can fully sing her part, and it not sound dissonant or anything like that. So very smart. Again, uh, I have to give Linkin Park so many compliments for taking the song and being so comprehensive about it, and keeping these elements, like treating their elements like building blocks, that they can just keep adding on to, and layering to build the full song. It really is fantastic. Okay, so let's talk about the lyrics. That's the last thing I want to talk about here. So the full lyrics are: because you're stained, you try to hide the mark, but it won't fade. You lie and lie like I was nothing. Pretend you're spotless, but I don't wash away, and now you're stained. And now you're stained. So yeah, the chorus, like most songs, is where the theme really gets driven home, and that's what's happening here. This pretty much summarizes everything we've already said. Because you're stained, you try to hide the mark. This is that idea that the antagonist is uh, trying to pretend like they didn't do anything, or trying to ignore or forget what they did, but they can't. It won't fade. It's like, and I'm just gonna state the obvious. The stain is a metaphor for, like, you can't just wash out the thing that you've done. It doesn't just go away because you want it to go away. Like, you actually have to address it. The pretend you're spotless, but I don't wash away. Again, keeping with the metaphor. Let me talk about this real quick. I When you have metaphors like this in a song, I think it can really quickly get corny. I think this isn't corny at all. I actually really like this. Everything that she's saying has the dual meaning outside of this song. So it's when they start trying to force meaning, and force meaning onto words and phrases that don't typically have it. That's when it starts to get, cliche or weird. Like imagine if she said, like, you know, pull out the Clorox, but I don't wash away. It's like that's kind of goofy. Like, no one says pull out the Clorox, you know. It'd just be a silly line anyway, right? But like the word, like, pretend you're spotless, that but you're not, like, that phrase on its own is a very that phrase is commonly used to describe, like, people who think that their shit don't stink, right? Pretend that they don't have problems. And then this idea, like, pretend you're spotless, but I don't wash away. That's not necessarily a common phrase, but I don't think that it sounds silly or out of place here. Um, I think the broader point that I'm getting at is, when you have a metaphor like this, it can quickly turn into something that's kind of gimmicky and silly, but I don't think they did that here. Um, I think, and I think one of the things that ties it together, funnily enough, is the third line where she says, "You lie and lie like I was nothing." I think that's a very, like, so that's not a metaphorical line. That's not a metaphor for anything. That's a very, like, serious line about, like, that's really driving home the frustration that the protagonist has with the antagonist. Like, you are a liar, you're lying, you're lying. um and then that line, interesting, like I was nothing, that's interesting too. It adds a little bit extra layers to it. Again, you kind of have to have this trade-off when you're writing lyrics of, like, how open-ended do you want them to be, and if you make it too open-ended, then it's hard, then you can't be let me put it like this is going to sound very simple or very obvious, but just bear with me. The more specific you make your situation, the less open-ended it can be. I know that's obvious, but there's a fine line that you have to walk, where you don't want to describe, like, oh, this one time I was in my accounting class at my college, and then I tripped on the way to class, and my teacher and the students made fun of me, which caused me to fail the class. Like, the more specific you get, it's like, how many people are actually going to be able to resonate with that experience, right? versus like if you just say something generic like I loved you but it didn't work, and then like that's your chorus or something, and you just repeat that over and over again. It's like, well, okay, you know, it's almost so open-ended that people aren't really going to be able to resonate with it because it's such an obvious sentiment, right? It's kind of like what I was saying about on the Two-Face breakdown. If you didn't listen, I was talking about the line, I can't hear myself think. It's like that's a very obvious line. It's very like, it's, I would say that's an example of it being just a little too open-ended. Like it's too on the nose. Everyone knows what that feels like, of course, but it's, you know, they could have. I think I made my point. It's just a little too much. But in this case, saying something like "you lie and lie like I was nothing," it's like that's a little bit more specific, like some specificity. Is that the word? Specificity? Specificity? Hold on, no, it's not specificity. I'm curious. Is that even a word? What I'm trying to specificity? Yes, it is specificity. Oh, specificity, the narrowness of the range of substances. Okay, or the, yeah, okay, cool. Specificity, specific. Yeah, that makes sense. You would go from specific to specificity. Anyway, um, it adds a little bit of specificity to lyrics that are otherwise a little more open-ended. Like this person is lying to you as if you're nothing, right? Um, so I think that it also clears up that like this antagonist has specifically done something to the antagonist has specifically done something to the protagonist uh in this scenario. It's not just like, oh, I saw you rob a liquor store and you're trying to hide it. It's like, no, you actually hurt me, you harmed me, you did something to me, and you're trying to pretend like you didn't, you know. So yeah, cool lyrics. I think that's about everything I've got on it. You know, because you're stained, you try to hide the mark, but it won't fade. You lie and lie like I was nothing, pretend you're spotless, but I don't wash away. And now you're stained. Yeah, that's pretty much everything. So now we get into the second verse. We jump right into it. So a few things happen here. First off, we get some drums. We get some really great sounding drums. So let's take a listen to those coming in.
Sweat in your hands while the time starts ticking. Tripping on words, alibi starts slipping.
All right, so a couple things. The drums are still keeping that don 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 bum bum bum, but they're just continuing it into a, or they're turning it into a full beat. So it's now going dum 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 da dum, or dum dum pa da dum dum pa dum dum pa da dum dum pa, so that we can actually like jam out to the part a little bit. So listen to that full drum beat here. Dum dum pa da dum dum pa.
Sweat in your hands while the time starts ticking. Tripping on words.
Oh, and actually, the second, I didn't notice that on the second go around when it's more open, they actually go da doom ba. So it goes doom doom ba da doom doom ba doom doom ba da doom ba. It's pretty cool. So just a little change that helps differentiate it. Let's listen one more time.
Sweat in your hands while the time starts ticking. Tripping on.
Yeah, pretty cool. The guitars are pretty much doing the same thing, just a drum 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 drum. And then we get some the melody's all the same from Mike, but we actually get Emily singing in the background, echoing what he says. Sweat in your hands when the time starts ticking. Sweat in your hands while the time starts ticking. Tripping on words, alibi starts slipping. Tripping on words, alibi starts ticking. Or sorry, alibi starts slipping. Yeah, that's so let's talk about that echo real quick before we get into the lyrics. I'm I'm a little iffy on this. I think she does it better on Good Things Go. And I don't know why. I don't know. This is probably the only part of the song that I'm even like a little iffy on. It's not bad. Like it's not killing the song for me in any way whatsoever. It's just the only part where I was like, okay, this is a little on the nose. Like I feel like she could have changed the lyrics a little bit, and we would have had it might have added a little more depth. But with her saying the exact same thing, it's just more of like this feels a tiny bit like a gimmick. Like it's a little bit of a gimmick. If she's gonna sing the like, if she's going to echo what he's doing, I think switching the lyrics up would have added an extra dimension of like depth to it, or extra layer of depth. But again, I'm not like, it's not a deal breaker. And actually, while we're talking about this echo, let's listen to how they do it, because she does switch it up just a little bit here on the third and fourth lines.
Alibi starts slipping. Wanna wake from the nightmare you've been living. But we both know forgotten doesn't mean forgiven. Forgiven, knowing you're hiding when no one.
Okay, so sorry. Yeah, the she doesn't do the full echo on the fourth line, but we both know forgotten doesn't mean forgiven. And then she just says mean forgiven, and then he comes back in with another forgiven. I know I'm like spelling out what you just heard, but here, listen one more time.
Doesn't mean forgiven. Forgiven, knowing you're.
So yeah, there's at least that differentiation there. So it's not like they just kept doing the exact same thing on every line. And then we just get into the pre-chorus. But yeah, again, it's like it's funny talking about these Linkin Park songs, because I have to be so nitpicky with them if I'm talking about things that I'm not really feeling, or that I don't like. But that's kind of how it goes when you actually come up with like creative ideas, and you try to do things that are different. Like sometimes it might not work for different people. I think this is just a little on the nose. It doesn't really add anything to the song. And it feels just a little more gimmicky than actually like meaningful. But that doesn't mean that it's not something that other people won't enjoy, and it doesn't mean that it's necessarily like bad for the song or harmful to the song in any way. It's just a thing that they decided to do. So yeah, cool stuff. Let's see. So with the drums coming in, we get our first actual beat, and like we settle into our first groove of the song. We're about halfway through the song though. The song's only about, let's see exactly how the song. Yeah, it's about 3 minutes and 5 seconds, and the drums come in about 1:18. So, when I talk about like compact songwriting and like really making use of each part that you have, this is a good example of that, where they made sure like when the drums come in, it should really add impact and mean something to the progression of the song. So the full drums coming in here definitely differentiates this verse from the first verse. It's a completely different vibe. I've talked. Well, I don't want to say that yet. Well, I'll get to that. But just understand that, like, in terms of musical progression, this is a very smart thing to do. It's very cool. Most bands would just have the drums on both verses, and that's fine. But for them to add, just that little extra amount of work can really help build the song up. And so this verse almost sounds like a completely different section than the first verse. Coming back to the first verse, just so you can hear how different it is. Take a listen.
I've said it. Gave you one chance, already regret it.
And then we come up here.
Head in your hands while the time starts ticking. Tripping on words.
Such a different sound and a different vibe, but they didn't change the guitars, the rhythm of the beat, the vocal melodies. It was just small little changes, small little building blocks, in order to create a very drastic. The small changes. Sorry, I'm all over the place. They're utilizing small changes to build upon the progression of the song and create a big change. I think that's all right. Yeah, you get it. So yeah, the next thing we are going to talk about is the let's see real quick. The lyrics. Yeah, let's talk about the lyrics. So sweat in your hands while the time starts ticking. Tripping on words, alibi starts slipping. Wanna wake from the nightmare you've been living. But we both know forgotten doesn't mean forgiven. Okay, so I've talked about this in other songs, and I'm going to talk about it here. I think that a song, like any work of art, is supposed to have some level of uh, progression. Not progression in the sense that it has to be a story, but there has to be, movement and action. There has to be something that is happening in a human, like that affects you, like, as a human, right? Um the simplest version of this is like your hero's journey, your typical story. um this is why I don't like the idea of like just vibes, right? Oh, it's just a vibe, like the song is just a vibe. It's like that's fine, but that's really just sensory. It's just sensory television for adults, right? Like, the kids will watch Shapes and Colors. Like, if your music doesn't have anything that it's actually giving you or teaching you, or if you're not pulling anything away from it, it's really just sensory, you know sensory TV, as far as I'm concerned. That doesn't mean that like a little bit of music in the background can't be nice and relaxing, but and good from time to time. I know that I really just took a giant shit on that, but like the point that I'm making is that I really think the best songs are the ones that can actually affect you and have some level of like movement and story to them. Even if there is no lyrics or vocals, a musical piece can have a story or of movement to it. Sometimes a great song can just make you relaxed. Like a great piece of music with no lyrics can just relax you or pump you up, or just offer something to your experience as a human who is alive in this world, right? So, with that said, when you're looking at, I know that I got a little high level there, but to bring it back to like a standard verse, chorus, bridge, chorus type of song, I've mentioned before that the second verse is a really interesting place. We've already settled into the song. You're repeating what you've done earlier on in the song. Like you're beginning your repeat, right? So you have to keep things interesting. So where do you go from there, right? The second verse is where you can really start to expand on the conflict, that you presented in the first verse, right? So in this case, if you compare the first verse where you say, "Hand on my mouth, I shouldn't have said it, gave you a chance, already regret it," you compare that, which in my opinion, those are lyrics that are coming from a very weak position. Like, I don't know, this sounds bad, like a victim position. Like, this person has pushed you to their limits. They are, you're coming at it from a position of weakness in comparison to this person. Like, I'm trying to be sympathetic, but I know where it's going to go if I let it. Like you are in a position of relative weakness to this person. Versus the second verse, versus the second verse. The second verse, after we've already established in the pre-chorus and chorus in the first half of the song that this person is guilty, like close lips, smile because there's blood on your teeth. You don't get to make amends when your hand's still clean because you were stained. Like, okay, we have fully established that the antagonist is guilty now. So what can we do in the second verse? Well, we can actually start to say, like, what does that mean when we now know for sure that this antagonist is guilty? Well, sweat in your hands while the time starts ticking. Tripping on words, alibi starts slipping. Want to wake up from the nightmare you've been living, but we both know forgotten doesn't mean forgiven. So now we're actually looking a little more into the psyche of the antagonist. The antagonist is actually aware in this song. The antagonist knows that they've done something wrong, and so we get to dive into that perspective in this second verse, which I think is great. Like, it's actually one of the best parts of like a great story is learning about your villain, learning about, who they are and who their motivations are. And you can do that in a song too. So it's like this person, sweat in your hands while the time starts ticking, tripping on words, alibi starts slipping. Like, clearly this person is getting nervous. Like, this person knows that like the pressure's on. They can't keep up this charade forever, and they're getting nervous. So then we get to the third line, which kind of like the first verse. The third line is where we get to have a little bit of a change. You want to wake up from the nightmare you've been living. Like, So the first two lines just imply the nervousness. The third line kind of, you know, it's like, this is what you really want to do. You really want to wake up from this. You really do. But we both know forgotten doesn't mean forgiven. And it's like, you want to wake up from this, but you're trying to pretend that this didn't happen, or that, you know, it's you're trying to downplay the severity of it to the point where you're actually like intentionally forgetting it, and that's just not going to work. Because that's not the same as forgiven, right? Like forgotten does not equal forgiven. In fact, it's the opposite. It means that you have just completely, you know, unacknowledged this thing that you've done. So hold on a second, I'm going to get some water. So the reason why I went on that big old rant earlier about like having themes and movements in your song is because we've now transitioned. The protagonist has transitioned from a position of weakness now to a position of strength, you know, calling out the antagonist more confidently, saying like, yeah, you're tripping on your words, your alibi's not not working anymore, you're slipping. I know that deep down you really wish that this would end. You want to wake up from this because you feel the guilt, which is something we're going to talk about more, because I think that's a really interesting aspect of this song is guilt. But the longer that you try to deny what happened, the worse it's going to be. Like, we both know forgotten doesn't mean forgiven. So yeah, pretty cool. So we've added a new perspective onto this story. This is not just some malicious person. Well, it can be a malicious person. I don't think that this is a person who is pure evil and doesn't regret what they did or whatever. It's actually the opposite. It's somebody who does subconsciously at least regret what they did and know that what they did was wrong, but they just want to keep denying it and living in their fantasy world, right? So yeah. I think that's everything for the second verse. So let's jump into the second pre-chorus. That's the beginning of that. Let's see, where's it at? Here.
Hiding when no one else sees. Closed lips, smile, cause there's blood on your teeth. What you forget, you were gonna repeat. You don't get to make amends like your head's still clean.
Because you're
Okay. So again, you know, we've talked a lot about like musical changes and progressions and building blocks and like taking pieces away, adding pieces in. Something that's very interesting is that this pre-chorus is actually softer than the first pre-chorus. So I want to note, like, thematically speaking, the lyrics are the same. Everything's the same lyrically, so we're not going to discuss that. But the thematically, we no longer are building the tension because we've already identified that the antagonist is wrong. The question I think that, you know, is going to happen, and we don't know yet. We'll figure out the answer to the story as we get through the song. But the question is the antagonist going to recognize and admit to what they did and admit that they were wrong, which we will find out later. But the point I'm making is that we no longer need to build the tension. The tension has already been cut. We know the antagonist is wrong. So this is actually a little bit of a more ambient, softer, more pleasing pre-chorus than the first pre-chorus. So check it out. Let's listen to it one more time.
When you're hiding when no one else sees. Closed lips, smile, cause there's blood on your teeth. What you forget, you were gonna repeat. You don't get to.
You know, with Emily singing in the background, the synths all sound a little bit lighter. Take a listen to the synths here.
Closed lips, smile, cause there's blood on your teeth. What you forget, you were gonna repeat. You don't get to make amends like your head's still clean.
And then we get those build up with the higher pitch build-ups, which are a little more intense because we're about to get into a full band chorus. But yeah, it's actually a very musically pleasing pre-chorus compared to the, you know, super tension-filled pre-chorus from the first half. Listen to the first pre-chorus again.
Know when you're hiding when no one else sees. Closed lips, smile, cause there's blood on your teeth. What you forget, you were gonna repeat. You don't get to make amends like your hand's still clean.
Hear all that, hear all those noises, like it sounds stressful, and the drums and the guitars are still playing. and they're intense, and they're really continuing what was happening in the first verse. But yeah, it's you know that tension is there, right? So listen again.
Close lips, smile, cause there's blood in your teeth. What you forget, you were gonna repeat. You don't get to make them
And actually, hold on. I need to hear something.
forgiven. Close lips, smile, cause there's blood in your teeth. What you forget, you were gonna repeat.
Okay, sorry. I thought maybe Emily did a different melody on the second pre-chorus, but she doesn't. She does the same melody. But anyway, listen again to this softer one though.
Smile, cause there's blood in your teeth. What you forget, you were gonna repeat. You don't get to make amends like your head's still clean.
It just sounds so much more pleasing and fulfilling. Yeah, again, one of the biggest things I talk about is like writing your music with a purpose. Like everything should serve the theme and the point of the song. And so as the song progresses, right? And I think that's something that they've done perfectly here. At this point in the song, you actually have a sense of not what's the word I'm looking for? The sense of not justification, like I don't know, I can't think of it, but you know that you're right, and you're identifying it to the person, to the antagonist, and you're just waiting to see if they figure it out. So cool. But let's get into this chorus, because this is like, I mean, this is honestly phenomenal. There's no other way to say it. Let's just listen to the first half of this chorus.
'Cause you're scared. You try to hide the mark, but it won't fade. You lie like I was nothing.
Wow. Okay, so this is, to me, this is like really where the song takes off. This all of the building blocks that have been put in place build to this moment. I want to note that this is about 2/3 of the way through the song. Probably not a coincidence if you know like your hero's journey and like your 3-act structure in storytelling. The I don't think that there's necessarily tension building in the second verse and pre-chorus, but I do think that there is this sense that the song hasn't really popped off yet. You get into the second verse and it's like it's cool and it's working great, right? But we're still not like, we still haven't like really settled into things, right? So here, listen.
Hands while the time starts ticking. Sweat in your hands while the time starts ticking. Tripping on words, alibis.
Like that's really not that's cool, and we do have our drum beat, but we haven't I just had what I was gonna say. Like that's what we're still building, right? We're still building. And really this is the first time where all of that building comes to like with the different sections and stuff comes into fruition. It is on this second chorus. It's a great example of like the different layers, the different harmonies. You have your octave guitars in the background, which really open this part up. So I think you still have the low end distorted guitars going boom 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 boom. Here, let's listen.
You were gonna repeat. You don't get to make amends like your head's still clean.
Because you're scared. You try to hide the mark, but it won't fade.
Yeah, it's hard to tell because there's that really heavy synth, like that warble synth, the wow, wow, which I'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, the main standout guitar part are those octaves in the background. They're a little higher pitched, like na 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 na. Take a listen to those.
Make amends like your head's still clean.
Because you're scared.
Yeah, that is really something. Okay, so in that like mid-range, higher to mid-range sound, you've got the guitar octaves playing. You've got your full drum beat. Let me see if that drum beat's the same as the verse.
Because you're scared. You try to hide the mark, but it won't.
It's not the same. It's actually a softer version. It's doom doom ba da doom ba doom doom ba da doom ba. Listen for that. It's a little bit because the pre-chorus or the verse drum beat in the second verse is a bit more. Oh, hold on, I gotta sneeze. Excuse me. The verse drums are a bit more intense. Here, listen.
Sweat in your hands while the time starts ticking.
Yeah, they go doom doom ba da doom doom ba, and then during the chorus, they're doom doom ba da doom ba. So they take out one kick drum there. Let's listen. Yeah, super cool. Real quick on the drums while I'm talking about it, just so everybody understands how drums kind of work. The main elements of the drum kit are the snare, the kick, and your cymbals. The kick and the snare are really what set up the the intensity and the up and down beat of the rhythm. So in this case, that's why if you hear me sing in the drum beat, I'm usually doing the kick and the snare and identifying those elements because I would say they're the most important elements of the drum kit. Do do ba da do ba. There would be other songs that go do ba do ba do ba do ba, like a Metallica song, or they might flip it, and start with the snare like ba do ba do ba do ba do versus do ba do ba do ba do ba. There's all these different beats that you can do. You can do the Latin beat like do ba do ba do ba do ba do ba do ba do. So those two elements are really what make up the beat when you think of like a drum beat. But then you have your cymbals, which is what I want to talk about real quick. Is your cymbal kind of sets up the intensity of the beat itself. So like the snare and kick establish the beat, but the cymbals are what determine whether or not the beat is driving forward or not. So think about it like this. Like imagine when you're hearing a rap song and the snare comes in and out, but the kick and the cymbal comes in and out. Like you have that. Like let me see. Is there an example that I can think of right off the top of my head? I don't think so. But think about it. Imagine like do ba do ba or do ba do do ba doom doom do ba doom doom, and then you get that like that's what the cymbal is, right? In this case, the cymbal is just doing in the background. It's if you didn't hear that, I'm sorry. It's really hard for this mic to pick up the cymbal sound. The cymbal is just going like da 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 in the background. Listen for it. It's the highest pitched sound in the mix. So it's a very consistent cymbal, which keeps this part steady. So that's like the role of the cymbal in the drum part, in the drum beat, is kind of determine the intensity of it. Imagine if they like did half as many cymbals, like da, like ch, pa, ch, pa, ch, pa. It'd have a much more open sound, but instead they decided to go ch, ch, pa, ch, 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 pa, ch. I sound like Jason. Ch, 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 okay, anyway, so I hate trying to do drum stuff over this mic, so bear with me. Anyway, let's talk about that warble synth. I think that this is such a cool sound to have here. It sounds both tense and anxiety inducing, but also liquid and fluid and kind of calming, which I know that's like, it's just a very unique sound. And I know, like I just said two completely different things, but I think it does capture those two elements. Like on one hand, it does seem very intense and like I said, like it can give you a little anxiety when you're listening to it. But then on the other hand, it's also kind of relaxing when it resolves, right? So listen, it goes, wow. It really is an amazing sounding synth there. I love the way that sounds. Yeah, it's just a very smart thing to do. It also is very, it covers that low end, which allows the higher stuff like Emily's singing and the octave guitars to stand on their own. But it makes it sound so full and satisfying to listen to. Which again, I think that's a big part of this section of the song, or this point in the song that we're at, is like, you know, you're right. Like the protagonist knows that they're right, and they're just trying to make, like, come on, like, you know that they're telling the antagonist, you know that you're wrong, you know that you're in the wrong, so what are you waiting on? Like, why are you, you know, I know that I'm right, at least, like, I'm good. I know that you're the one that's gonna have problems with this, but I'm good. You know, I get the feeling that that's like the message that's happening here. So there's a little bit of satisfaction in the knowledge that, like, you're stained, it's never gonna go away. You know, I'm good. I don't wash away, right? Uh, so I think all of those musical elements are what is that word I'm looking for? Like benediction, not benedict. What am I thinking of? A synonym for relief, because it's not really relief that I'm thinking. Like, I just can't find it. All right, I'm gonna stop trying to do it. Anyway, so okay. On top of that, I don't think she's singing it too much differently. I think she's singing it about the same. Let's listen real quick. Yeah, she's singing it about the same. It might even be the exact same recording. Oh, she gets some awesome harmonies in there, which again, like all throughout this album, she is fantastic with her harmonies. And that's actually like a high harmony. So pretend you're smart, pretend you're spotless. Hold on. Pretend you're spotless. And then the harmony is pretend you're spotless. Nah, that's not it. That's not a jazzy. Hold on. Spot. No, it's hard to tell what harmony that is. It's a little too high for me to accurately sing, but it's very pleasing to the ear. You know, and I think it's, you know, panning wise, it's just a little bit to the right, which is cool. It makes it sound a little more in the background. So yeah, just to round all of this out, we've got the octave guitars, the warbly synth, low end synth. The drum beat is playing a more open version of the beat that was established in the second verse. And then to top it all off, we've got Emily still singing fantastically, with some high harmonies there to emphasize it. I'm not going to dig into the chord progression here, but it all just works perfectly. It really is just a very relieving sounding part, which I think is, you know, when you think about the way that they were able to turn the tension building sound at the beginning, this right here, to think that that's actually part of the same progression that's happening here. Like, that just goes to show you that with a little bit of context and like layering, you can turn something that builds so much tension into something that relieving and pleasant sounding. It's really something else. I you know, shout out to them. So yeah, I just love this part. I love everything about it. It's so pleasant sounding. It fits with the theme and where we're at in the story, where the main character is you know, feeling a little bit whatever that word is, I can't think of, but justified, I guess, is the closest I can get to. Yeah, so it all just works really well. Sorry, I'm super stubborn. I'm still cool. So then we get into the bridge. Let's take a listen to this bridge. Is that motif again? There's that melody actually. I mentioned earlier that I wasn't sure if she sang it, but oh, that's that. Actually, hold on. Let me make sure that I'm saying this right. Hold on.
Trying so hard.
then she sings here. Yeah, no, it's not the same melody. So I really don't think that she sings that at all throughout the whole song. But yeah, this is just a repeat of the chorus melody.
You're hiding when no one else sees. Closed lips, smile over blood in your teeth.
And we're gonna get through this part pretty quickly. Musically, it's all doing pretty much the same stuff. I think they're just using different chords to build a little bit of tension. Whereas like the chords that they use in the chorus are more they're more settled, and it's like a full chord progression that resolves. These specifically are chords that are building tension, but compositionally all of the elements are the same. They're just going to change the notes, like the note of the bass or the note of the guitar octaves, to fit in with the tension building chords that they're using. So the main thing that we're going to talk about here are these lyrics and what this means for the theme of the song.
What you forget, you were gonna repeat. Trying to make amends like your hands still clean. But we both know that your hand's not clean.
And someday, your hands will be too red to hide the blame. You realize you had it coming. Pretend you're smiling.
Okay, so I wanted to pause there, or I wanted to let that play out actually, because I think this is that is the climax of the song. That is the thematic and lyrical climax. And in this case, it's actually a little bit it's still kind of open-ended, but I think that there is an element of like not retribution, but this feeling that like you were right, and this person is eventually going to get what they deserve, and realize that. Well, here's what's funny, right? Actually, I say that, but the more I look at the lyrics, especially, and someday your hands will be too red to hide the blame. You'll realize you had it coming. So actually what that implies is that this person is going to stay in denial until it's too late for them to, come clean on what they did. And it's going to get to the point where they can't deny it anymore. And then they realize that whatever punishment they had, they actually had it coming. So maybe not the best ending for the antagonist, but hey, a good ending for our protagonist, because this person actually gets what they deserve. So yeah, let's talk real quick about this this bridge real quick. The lyrics.
Lips, smile over blood in your teeth.
So yeah, that's the refrain that she says, which pretty clever, because she changed, instead of saying because you're stained, she found like the one word that rhymes with stained really well, which is someday. And yeah, so someday, so she's saying and someday, and then Mike cuts in with lines from the pre-chorus. He says, knowing you're hiding what no one else sees, and someday, closed-lipped smile over blood on your teeth, and someday, what you forget you are gonna repeat, trying to make amends like your hand's still clean, but we both know that your hand's not clean. So that's the final like nail in the coffin there. Like really fully establishing like we both know, like you're trying to make amends that your hand's not clean, but we both know that your hand's not clean. And actually Mike gives a pretty cool little vocal performance there, really emphasizing it. Let's take a listen.
You're hiding when no one else sees. Closed lips, smile over blood in your teeth.
Love that line still. Really, really cool line. I'm going to fast forward a little bit though.
Trying to make amends like your hand's still clean. But we both know that your hand's not clean.
Really like, but we both know that your hand's not clean. Like just really nailing it there. And so then we get into this soft bridge. It's actually the chorus technically, but it's like an altered chorus. Pretty common, but very effective to change the lyrics in the third chorus to match the resolution, like the thematic resolution that we reached in the climax. So yeah, this kind of finalizes our story here.
Not clean.
And someday, to hide the blame. You realize you had it coming.
So she's singing that super intense, super gravelly, um, very, very strong. I don't think it's overdone or corny sounding. It actually sounds very, it actually sounds a little tortured, a little tortured singer vibe. But regardless, the lyrical implication is, yeah, and someday your hands will be too red to hide the blame. You'll realize you had it coming. So, it could be said that like the person, like she's just, you know what? Actually, I take back what I said earlier. She's not saying that that's what actually will happen, or sorry, I had said that the story doesn't end well for our antagonist, but actually it's still a little open-ended. I think the point that they're making is that if you don't come clean, it's going to catch up with you someday. So, and when it does, you're going to realize that whatever consequences you have, you deserved. So, it's still an open-ended story, but we'll talk about it a little more once we finish the song. Underneath it, we've got that really pleasing sounding low end synth with a little bit of other, like the higher pitched synths, the Dark Knight synths. Na, 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 na. So I think it's, again, like an interesting combination to use that Dark Knight tension building synth with the more pleasing low end synth it almost, I take it as the tension is not necessarily for the protagonist. The tension is for the antagonist and what's going to happen to them. But the protagonist is still satisfied with where they're at, which is why they got that low end synth. Let's listen to it.
You realize you had it coming someday. Your hands will
You
be
hear that in the background? That na 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 na. Listen one more time.
someday. Your hands will be too red to hide the blame. You realize you had it coming.
And then yeah, it's just that really strong, like you realize you had it coming. Like it's fun. It's good. And we get the snares coming. Pop, 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 pop. And then what's really cool is they, the way that she the line that she comes in on just so happens to be the line where she has the high harmony. So this, coming back into the full band chorus sounds really nice. It just sounds really epic. So here, take a listen.
You realize you had it coming. We said you're solid, but I don't wash away. Now you're staying.
That's really cool too, is she actually has the harmonies singing a lower single note while she does that full melodic motif. So she's doing the aim, and then they're singing and now you're stained. They go down a little bit at the end. Take a listen.
But I don't wash away.
And now you're stained. We'll do it again. Stained. Yeah, super cool. Very cool layering. And I think they even do like, and now you're, like, in the background. Right here. Yeah. Oh, and now you're. Hear that? And I think it's like in the right. Yep, and then they go high there. I was thinking they did that, but I was like, why aren't they going high? I remember them doing that. Here. And then the last thing I want to note is that her ability to build the intensity of that note at the very end, stained, and really get that distortion in there. Super cool. Super, super cool. Yeah, and then we end with a little bit of that Dark Knight synth. The na 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 na. So yeah, really really awesome song. We finished it. This one again, it's really grown on me. It's like a sleeper hit. It's such a cool song. Um, there's nothing like crazy mind blowing, like on a technical level or anything. It's just good songwriting. It's taking these little pieces and these building blocks and arranging them in a way that's really valuable. So I mentioned earlier that I wanted to talk about the song comprehensively. One of the things I'm going to talk about is the song structure and the way that it builds now that we've seen the full progression, right? So we start off with just that really tense, boom, 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 right? Uh, Basically from the start of the song up until the first chorus, which happens 52 seconds in, it's the same boom, 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 and it's just this constant build up in tension. And they build up with various ways. They can build up with the drums coming in, with the guitars coming in, build up with the synths in the background, and then they build up with Mike singing, or rapping, singing more intensely in the pre-chorus, and then also with Emily layering her vocals in the background. And so all of this is meant to kind of set up I guess it sets the conflict up of like what the protagonist has been through, and how they view the antagonist, right? Um, or how they at least view their relationship with the antagonist. So then we get into the first chorus, and we can actually, we still haven't busted into a beat or anything, and we've been building the tension up to here, but we do get this, this sense of this satisfying chorus where it's like you really call them out. You actually identify, yeah, you're stained. You lie and lie like I was nothing. You pretend you're spotless, but you're not. So then we, speaking structurally, we come into the core, the second verse, and we bring in drums and a full sound with her kind of re-echoing the vocals that Mike does, which allows us to actually get the song going and pick the song up. It's not necessarily about building tension at this point. It's more about continuing the story and building the intensity of the story. Thematically or lyrically, we're now talking about, we've already confirmed that this person has done wrong, and now as the song picks up, rather than building tension, we are, lyrically or musically, we're now, talking about what they're going through and what it must be like to have done something wrong and to have, you know, and not be able to fess up to it for whatever reason, whether you lack the maturity or the self-awareness. Um, so yeah, we're just plugging along on the song, but it does seem much more relieving, and so then we get into the pre-chorus, and I just want to note again, like, we had the drums in the verse, but then we actually took out all drums in the pre-chorus, which gives it this much softer feel and a very different feel from the first pre-chorus, right? Then when we come in with the second chorus, we've got the full band, and it just opens up so much. And this is the point where, we have fully reached we've explained the protagonist point of view, we've explained the antagonist point of view. Now the only question left is, what is the antagonist going to do? And I think it's, that is kind of emphasized by the bridge basically continuing the music of the second chorus. The bridge doesn't really change musically at all. And they just repeat what they said in the pre-chorus essentially. But the implication now is like, okay, you're still not fessing up, so we need to make this clear to you. Someday, that's why they keep saying that word, someday, like, you're not going to be able to run away from this. And so this brings us to the third chorus, where after all of the openness and intensity of the full band second chorus and bridge, we come back down and, take everything out so that we can finally give these final lyrics, or we can give these final lyrics and drive the theme home of, like, someday you're not going to be able to hide from this. Like, and when that happens, you're going to realize that you had it coming. Like, you have the awareness. And so whether they do or they don't, it's left open. But the truth is that at some point you're going to have to fess up or come to terms with it. It's your choice when you do that. And so once that is established, you'll realize you had it coming. We get to have the full band come back in and take us out to the end of the song. So this song, the reason why I wanted to go through that structurally is because it was really building up to this one moment in a really efficient way, by adding drums, removing drums, adding different types of synths, layering the guitars in different ways, layering the vocals in different ways. Um, I just, I went on that whole rant earlier about how songs should have this sense of progression and evolution, and you should be able to learn something from them or take something away. And I think that the message of this song about like, well, I'm going to talk about the message of the song in a second, but I just think that every aspect of this song, musically, lyrically, everything, uh, created a very satisfying narrative progression. Um, and so I want to point that out and compliment them on it, because you just don't see that a lot today. A lot of the songs, to me, this song, like, it's funny because I actually would consider this song a quote unquote vibe, but I think that it's an example of like, you can still have, you know, complex lyrics and complex themes and complex music, while still making your song a vibe. They're not mutually exclusive things. And so this is just a perfect song for that. This is not like some crazy technical, jazz opera that lasts for 30 minutes. It's a 3 minute verse chorus song. It's just really, really well made. And so, yeah, um, I just want to compliment that. So the next thing I want to talk about, and really this will probably be the final thing that I talk about, is the message of this song and the themes. I gotta get some water. Hold on. Okay. This song thematically is just something else. It is open ended. I think that I want to say that because it's kind of like, you can extrapolate lots of complex themes from open ended songs that aren't actually there. Like you can take a very basic pop song and then say, oh, this song's about lying and cheating and love and relationships and this and that and this and that. But it's almost like fanfic that you're doing for the author. They didn't actually say all of that. You're just implying that because they're talking about something very generic, like a relationship, that you can now apply all of the complexities of relationships to this song, even though the song itself doesn't portray those topics, right? I don't think that's what's happening here. They actually do address a lot of complicated topics like regret and guilt, retribution, even to a degree, and in a kind of offhanded way, forgiveness or lack thereof. Something I think is really interesting about the song is that our antagonist is not just like some psychopath. They're not just like this horrible, evil, like pure evil person, right? Like who doesn't even think that they did anything wrong. Our antagonist is actually fully aware on some level that what they did was wrong, and they're trying to hide it, and they can't admit to it. Um, I'm not necessarily saying that they are well, I think that's the question, right? Is this person redeemable, and are people redeemable after they do bad things, right? I don't think that this song answers that, but it definitely, you know, it's a very important question for uh really everybody. Like everyone has to deal with that. Like if somebody does you wrong, do you forgive them? Or what do they have to do for you to forgive them? Or what does it take? And can people, be redeemed and all of that? I'm not trying to get all religious with it, but like the point is that this song asks a lot of interesting questions. You know, I really, again, I really like that line, like closed lips smile because there's blood on your teeth. It's like, well, actually, hold on. That's not really what I'm talking about right now. I think I think what I was looking at more is the like want to wake up from the nightmare you've been living in the second verse, but we both know forgotten doesn't mean forgiven. It's like, you know, our antagonist is a flawed person who is not pure evil, or else they wouldn't even think that they did anything wrong. They are a person who does think that who is more of in denial about the bad things that they've done. And I'm not saying that that's justified. I just think that, the best antagonists are the more realistic ones, and realistic bad people actually typically convince themselves that they're good. Um, and that makes them more interesting. So yeah, I just want to note, I guess just point out that this song covers a lot of those complicated topics in a very interesting way. There's even like a hint of retribution in there, of like someday you'll realize you had it coming, right? Um, I think like maybe the way that she sings that, and the intensity of it, it implies that like, yeah, I want you to get what's coming to you. But there's also, with all of the other lyrics and the way that it's presented, it's like there's this element of, I want you to like just admit that you were wrong. Like, you are the one, like, you're the one that's living in the nightmare. You're the one that's like, your hands are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy. Like, you're the one with the sweaty hands, tripping on your words, coming up with alibis, right? Like, you've created this prison for yourself. So why, like, just admit that you did something wrong. It's okay, and that way you can actually, like, we can move forward, right? But we for sure cannot move forward until you at least admit it, because what you're trying to do right now is ignore it, and pretend like it's all forgotten or everything's fine, and it's not, right? So yeah, like, there's no definitive answer on these questions or these topics presented here. It's more of just an exploration of that, and I really like it. You know, and I think the truth is that a lot of people, you could just listen to this song and not give a shit about any of the lyrics and not pay attention to them or how deep they are, but that doesn't mean that they're not deep and that it's not there, you know? And I think that that's something that's important to note and to have, because I think once you actually explore the lyrics and you think about them more, and they're good, it actually makes the song better. It actually makes it resonate with you more and makes you want to listen to it more and experience it. So, you know, there you go. That's it. Cool. Well then, on that note, let's just go through my little template here at the end, and then we can wrap it up. So to me, the purpose of this song, I think they wanted to write a like something that was a more typical ballad, with a more heavy, serious song topic, but also do it with a Linkin Park style, which I think is what they did exactly. This is definitely Linkin Park. Um, this has every element of Linkin Park, but it doesn't sound like something that would have. It doesn't sound like they're just rehashing old shit. Like, this sounds very fresh and new, and I really like it. And it just shows another facet. Something that I've said about these, deep cuts on the album is that they're very unique sounding, and they have their own vibe, and I really like that vibe there. I do like, they're showcasing different sides of the band. All of the songs are very different from each other. You can tell that they're passionate about all of the songs too, and making sure that this album felt comprehensive. Genre style, I wouldn't put this into like the new metal thing. This to me was more like alternative rock, something like that. um the song structure on its face was pretty simple: verse, pre-chorus, chorus, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, bridge, chorus. But the way that they mix and match the elements of the songs, specifically the drums, really, you know makes the song feel like a constant progression, like it's constantly changing. So that's just, very smart. um Pretty cool. Then compositionally, so I think that this song actually like lives off of its composition. um what I mean by that is that there's no gimmicks here. This song is just good rhythms, good melodies, good progression. And just to clarify, what I mean by composition is the actual like musical aspect of the song, like the notes that they chose, the beats that they chose, the chords, those things. It's all very well defined and very well established early on in the song, and then they just continue to build off of it. And you know none of the melodies are bad, none of the rhythms or things sound out of place, but they're also not so simple or bland that they're like forgettable, right? I think the obviously the standout melody is that stained, like that's like the big one. It's a very interesting melody. That like 165 165 progression there is really cool and very unique. So yeah, compositionally, very cool song. Nothing too crazy, but also uh, nothing that's like bad or out of place. Mix wise, yeah, the mix is fine. The mix is great. Really, all of the songs are mixed great, except for Casualty. I think the mix on that is a little bland. But yeah, this song it's mixed perfect. The highs and the lows and everything are very very well established. It sounds great. Lyrically, this song just describes a person who's done something bad and they are trying to, maybe they think that they're going to get away with it, or they're trying to forget that they did it. But the reality is that, you know, you are responsible for the things that you do, and those things that you do stay with you forever. So you are stained. And then the last part, well, and that leads into the theme, which is, like I said, we've got themes of regret, guilt, uh, retribution, all of those things. And the big theme to me is you can try and hide the bad things that you've done, but that doesn't mean that they go away. And you know, you can just continue to do it. How you deal with that truth is up to you. You can continue to do it, but one day you're gonna get what's coming to you. Or I think the more positive way to view it is that you can fess up to the things that you've done and try to actually um you know, achieve some level of forgiveness. So yeah, my final verdict on this one, yeah, this is another sleeper hit on the album, similar to Overflow, which I'm absolutely going to talk about because I think Overflow is the like hidden gem. If Heavy as the Crown is like the crowning achievement of the album, Overflow is like that hidden gem that shouldn't be as good as it is, but it is. But yeah, this song is right there with Overflow, little sleeper hit, very very well written, very compact and tight. It was combed over. I actually put that. I think this song was combed over to the point of near perfection. Um, all the elements are there. They work very well together to emphasize the lyrics and the theme. Everything's working, as it should. In my opinion, it really is an amazing ballad with a deep meaning that also showcases the full abilities of the band. So, yeah, there you go. Another one bites the dust. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We're gonna keep doing more Linkin Park because I'm just really enjoying the album. I grew up with Linkin Park. I've been listening to Linkin Park since I was in like third grade. So it's just really awesome. Feeling this passionate about a Linkin Park album again. I think I will need to go back and re-listen to some of the other ones. Um, but hey, for right now, we're gonna just keep enjoying this new one. Okay. So thank you guys for listening. Really appreciate it. I know that these episodes are long, but I hope you're getting something out of it. I certainly enjoy doing them. So yeah, uh, keep an eye out for the next one. Okay. And yeah, that's it. Peace out. Wale.